When your cat stretches the exact moment they see you, it probably looks like a small, ordinary thing. A quick arch of the back, front legs extended, maybe their paws pressing into the floor while their body lengthens in that slow, dramatic way cats do so well. Most people glance at it and think the same thing. They're just loosening up after a nap, but that simple explanation misses something important. Because if stretching were only about muscles, it wouldn't happen with such perfect timing, yet so many cat owners notice the same pattern again and again. The cat is somewhere in the room, maybe sitting quietly or lying down, and the moment the human walks in, stretch, almost like a tiny performance. And that timing isn't random. In fact, behavior researchers often describe this as a kind of social stretch, a behavior triggered not by physical stiffness, but by the presence of someone the cat recognizes. In other words, your cat isn't just waking their body up, they're acknowledging you. That stretch can be a subtle form of greeting, a quiet way of saying, I see you, and you're here. Cats communicate through body language far more than sound, and this movement is one of those signals many owners completely overlook, but when you start noticing it, you realize it's not just a stretch, it's your cat's version of a hello. If you think about it for a moment, the timing is the giveaway. Your cat could stretch at any time during the day, 5 minutes earlier, 10 minutes later, while you're in another room. But so often, it happens right when you appear. That's because the action is connected to you, not to their joints or muscles. Something about seeing you enter the space activates the behavior. And here's the fascinating part. Cats don't do this equally with everyone. Many cat owners quietly notice that their cat stretches more often around them than around other people in the home. It might happen when you return from work, when you step into the kitchen, or when you sit down after walking into the living room, and meanwhile someone else can walk past the same cat and get almost no reaction at all. That difference is rarely accidental. Cats are selective creatures. They don't spread their social behaviors evenly across everyone they meet. When they stretch in front of you consistently, it often means you become a familiar and meaningful presence in their world. And if you're listening to this and suddenly thinking about your own cat doing that little stretch when you come home, you're not imagining it. That moment might actually be one of the quietest ways your cat acknowledges your importance in their daily life. Something else makes this behavior even more interesting, and many scientists believe that some of the signals cats use around humans didn't originally exist in the wild. Domestic cats have been living alongside people for thousands of years, and during that time they developed communication habits that are specifically tuned to human attention. Meowing at adult humans is one of the best known examples. In the wild, cats mainly meow as kittens when communicating with their mothers. Adult wild cats rarely use that sound with each other, yet domestic cats meow at people constantly, and that's because it works. Humans notice it. Over generations, cats leaned into behaviors that successfully got our attention. Stretching when we appear may be part of that same social toolkit. It's a visible, easy-to-read motion that draws the human eye. Your cat doesn't need words or loud sounds to communicate. They simply elongate their body in a way that makes you look down and notice them, and the moment you do, the connection has already happened. Before we keep going, let me pause for a second and say something honestly. If you're the kind of person who enjoys learning these little hidden details about how cats think and communicate, you're exactly the kind of person these conversations are for. If you want to, you can like the video or subscribe, but not because of some algorithm pressure, just because it helps more curious cat owners find this kind of information. The more people understand these subtle signals, the better life becomes for the cats living with them. Now, there's another layer to that stretch that many people never realize. Your cat's paws actually contain scent glands. Right between the pads are tiny glands that release pheromones when the cat presses or flexes their feet against a surface. When your cat stretches and pushes those paws forward, those glands can activate. The scent released isn't something humans can smell, but to other cats, it carries clear information. It marks a space as familiar territory. So when your cat stretches near you, especially on the couch, the bed, or the floor right beside your feet, they may also be quietly scent marking that area. In the feline world, scent is like a signature. It says, "This place belongs to my safe circle." That doesn't mean your cat is claiming ownership of you in an aggressive, territorial way. Instead, it's closer to the emotional equivalent of labeling something as part of home. When your presence overlaps with those scent markings, your cat is effectively blending you into the environment that makes them feel secure. It's a strange thought at first, but in the cat's mind, you become part of the landscape of safety. You might also notice that some cats stretch more dramatically for certain people. Maybe your cat performs the full extended pose when you walk into the room, but only glances up when someone else enters. And that difference often reflects emotional preference. Cats do form attachments to multiple people, but they usually have one or two individuals who receive the strongest signals of social bonding. Researchers studying household cats have observed that behaviors like slow blinking, rubbing, vocalizing, and stretching often cluster around the same favored person. So if your cat greets you with that long stretch while someone else gets nothing but a brief tail flick, it might be their quiet way of showing where you sit in their personal hierarchy. Cats don't hand out those signals casually. They reserve them for the humans they trust most. Morning stretches are another moment where this behavior becomes especially meaningful. Many cat owners have experienced waking up and immediately noticing their cat nearby doing that long front leg extension. It almost looks like the cat waited for you to open your eyes before starting, and in many cases, they actually did. Cats are naturally most active during dawn and dusk, which means they often wake up long before their humans do. And during those early hours, they might wander around the house, watch the window, or simply sit quietly near the bed. But the stretch often happens only after you stir awake. That moment functions like a greeting ritual. After hours of separate activity, your sleep and their quiet nighttime patrol, the stretch marks the start of shared time again. It's the feline version of a good morning. If you live alone with a cat, you might assume that's just normal daily behavior. But if you pay attention when guests stay over, you may notice your cat doesn't greet them with the same ritual. That particular stretch is often reserved for the person they associate with safety and routine. And then there's the stretch that happens directly in your path. Anyone who lives with a cat knows this moment. You're walking toward the kitchen, heading down the hallway, maybe carrying something in your hands. And suddenly your cat appears right in front of you and stretches out across the floor like a living speed bump. It seems like terrible timing, but from the cat's perspective, it's actually perfect timing. Cats are extremely aware of movement patterns in their homes. They know exactly where you usually walk. By choosing that location to stretch, they place themselves somewhere you cannot ignore. It's a confident move. Your cat isn't begging for attention. They're expecting acknowledgement. And almost every time it works, you stop, you look down, maybe you laugh, step over them carefully, or say something to them without even thinking about it. In that moment, your cat successfully redirected your attention. Some behavior experts describe this as a mild social control behavior. Your cat is testing whether they can interrupt your movement and make you notice them. The funny part is, most of us happily cooperate. If this reminds you of your own cat dramatically stretching across a doorway or hallway, you're definitely not alone. That little move has tripped up cat owners everywhere. If you want, tell me about it in the comments. Hearing those everyday cat stories from other people is honestly one of the most entertaining parts of the whole cat-loving community. But what if your cat never does this stretch when they see you? If you've been listening to all of this thinking, mine doesn't do that at all, don't jump to the worst conclusion. It doesn't automatically mean your cat dislikes you or that something is wrong with your relationship. Cats have individual personalities just like people. Some are naturally more expressive with their body language, while others are quieter and subtler. There are also environmental reasons why a cat might hold back on relaxed stretches. Cats tend to stretch most openly when they feel completely safe. In homes with a lot of noise, unpredictable movement, or tension between pets, a cat might keep their body more guarded. Stretching exposes the belly and elongates the body, which temporarily lowers a cat's defensive readiness if the environment doesn't feel stable. They may simply skip that vulnerable gesture. Another possibility is learning history. Remember earlier when we talked about cats developing behaviors that successfully get human attention? If a cat stretched in front of their human many times and received no response, they may gradually stop using that signal. Cats are excellent observers of cause and effect. If a behavior doesn't lead to interaction, it often fades away. The encouraging news is that this can change. When you notice your cat stretching, even if it happens rarely, pause for a moment and look at them, speak softly, or blink slowly in their direction. Those small acknowledgments teach your cat that their signal reached you. And before we finish, I want to say something simple but important. If you made it all the way through this video, it probably means you care deeply about understanding your cat. That alone already makes you a better companion to them. If you'd like to keep exploring these hidden behaviors together, you can subscribe, but think of it less like joining a channel and more like joining a group of people who are curious about what their cats are actually trying to say, because in the end, cats rarely communicate in loud or obvious ways. They speak through posture, timing, tiny movements. We often miss a stretch when you walk into the room may look like nothing, but to your cat, it can be a greeting, a signal of comfort, a mark of territory, and a quiet reminder that you're part of the safe world they've built around themselves. And once you start seeing it that way, that simple little stretch suddenly feels a lot more meaningful.